Hi everyone, I'm Nick with Burnley and Trowbridge, and you're joining us today for a tutorial on how to make 18th century hat cockades. In the 18th century, European and American men's hats were sometimes decorated with cockades made of ribbon or folded fabric. These are often part of a military uniform, and they're occasionally seen on gentlemen's hats. Cockades were made in many different styles during the 18th and early 19th centuries. This video will show a few styles that can be traced to period artwork or existing examples, and will show a few basic techniques to help you make your own cockades based on period examples. Be sure to thoroughly research your particular impression before choosing an appropriate style for your hat. I'll be showing 4 simple types of cockades in this video: a gathered rectangle, a rosette, a pinked ribbon, and a looped bow. The names I'm using are not historical terms, they're just names I made up to simplify the discussion for the video. For the gathered rectangle type, start with a silk rectangle about 8 by 10 inches in dimension. With one of the short edges at the top, fold the top edge down to the center and lightly press. Then fold the lower edge up to the center and press again. Now find the center line that runs vertically through the middle of the piece. Fold the left side of the rectangle to the center and then the right side to the center, overlapping about 1/4 inch in the middle. Finally, work a running stitch using heavy thread down the center line, taking care to go through all the layers. Gather it up and you're done. The gathers can be pulled tight or left looser depending on what's desired for the final shape. For a 2-color cockade, repeat the same steps with a slightly smaller piece of silk in the secondary color and lightly stitch the 2 pieces together to finish. For the rosette type, select a wide, heavy silk ribbon. I'm using a 2-inch silk satin ribbon. This style of cockade often has more than one layer of ribbon, either in the same color or a different color. If doing 2 layers, select a second ribbon that's a little narrower than your main ribbon. Before you start, thread your needles with a piece of thread matching each color of ribbon. You'll need those handy since your other hand is going to be busy holding the ribbon. It's also a really good idea to have a thimble ready to push the needles through. Cut a generous 12-inch length of your main ribbon and about a 10-inch length of your second ribbon if using. You might need a little less ribbon for each, so you should experiment with this a little before you cut your ribbon. Fold and press the raw edges of the ribbon under about 1/4 inch. You don't need to hem them, just press them firmly. Starting with one end, fold and manipulate the ribbon on one side to form a rough circle. Try to make the folds as even as possible and stack them up in the middle. Continue around until you've completed the circle and the other free ends of the ribbon slightly overlap at the starting point. Don't let go. It might take a few tries to get this right, but be patient and take your time. Grab your prepared needle and take a few stitches through the middle, catching all the layers and folds that you can, and tie off your thread on the back. Now repeat the process with your second ribbon. Before you tie off the thread, you can use it to stitch the smaller rosette to the bigger one. You can also add a matching covered button to the middle to finish it off neatly. Cover your button with a ribbon or a piece of fabric that looks similar and stitch it on with a few loops through the back. For the pinked ribbon type, this style can be made with wide taffeta ribbon or a piece of finely hemmed taffeta if you can't get really wide ribbon. I recommend stiffening your silk with some gum tragacanth to give it some body. Watch our buckram video for how to do that. Here I'm using the 2-inch taffeta ribbon that Burnley and Trowbridge sells, stiffened with some gum. You'll also need an 8-inch piece of 1-inch taffeta ribbon that matches to finish off your bow. Cut 4 pieces of ribbon, each about 4 inches long. Use pinking shears to make the cut. Fold all of your pieces in half and lightly finger press to mark the center lines. Next, overlap one edge of a pair of ribbons by about 3/4 of an inch. Using a fine black silk thread, run a gathering stitch along your fold line down the middle. Lightly gather the ribbon to make a slightly pinched rectangle. Set this piece aside. Now take your other 2 pieces of ribbon, overlap the long edges by about 1/4 inch, and pin. Now run a gathering stitch from the top of one ribbon to the bottom of the other, following your crease line. Cinch it down and tie it off with the thread. Now take the 8-inch piece of narrow ribbon and neatly wrap it around the middle of the gathered pieces to form a nice bow. Tie it off fairly tightly and secure it with a stitch or 2 through the back, and then trim off the excess ribbon. Finally, stitch the bow to the middle of your other piece of gathered ribbon and it's done. For the looped bow type, for this style I'm using a 1 1/4 inch wide silk ribbon. For a 3-loop bow, you'll need 2 pieces about 10.5 inches long and 1 piece about 9 1/4 inches long. You'll also need a 1/2 inch wide piece of matching ribbon about 5 inches long to tie the center. It needs to be long enough to tie around the loops in a knot, but it will be trimmed off once it's pulled tight. Take your 3 pieces of 1 1/4 inch wide ribbon and overlap the ends of all 3 by 1/4 inch to form 3 loops. Stitch each one with a fine running stitch. You should now have 2 longer loops and 1 shorter loop. Now take each loop and run a gathering stitch across the middle. Cinch it up, but not all the way, and then tie off the thread. Now take the 2 longer loops and lay them across one another to make a flat X. Stitch them together at the center through all layers. Take your remaining loop and place it across the middle of the X. And again, take a few stitches through all the layers to attach them. Now take your 1/2 inch ribbon and neatly loop it around the center of all 3 stacked loops. Carefully tie it at the back, manipulating the fullness of the bow loops as you do so to keep things looking nice. Once it's tied, take a few stitches through the knot into the loop ribbons to secure it, and then trim off the excess ribbon. Now it's done. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on making hat cockades. Special thanks to Matthew Brankel for his assistance with the how-to instructions. Matthew is an expert on historical hat making and is an excellent source for accurate period hats for your historical wardrobe. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you find our videos helpful, and until next time, happy sewing!